You're listening to XVGM Radio. Welcome to XVGM Radio, where the bits keep coming. I'm Justin.
And I'm Mike.
And this is episode 58, a very special episode.
Yes, it's like a very special
Saturday morning.
Yes.
This is a 25-year anniversary for one of the best RPGs that's ever come out on the SNES, Chrono Trigger.
Oh, man, I thought you were going to say Chrono Cross. Just kidding.
No, Radical Dreamers, man.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Isn't that the jet bike one, where it's just a jet bike?
What? No, that's the text adventure sequel.
Oh, yes, you're right. I thought I could have sworn there's a game that's like just the jet bike. You play as just the jet bike. Anyways, yes.
Nice.
Hey, we're doing an episode on Chrono Trigger. It's the 25th anniversary, and 25 years later, people are still talking about this fantastic game and its wonderful soundtrack. And so we wanted to sit down and kind of bask in the nostalgia of this monumental JRPG. So with us today is a special guest. We had to bring this guy on because, I mean, why would you do a podcast on Chrono Trigger without bringing in the guy who named his podcast after Chrono Trigger? This is Drew Mackie from Singing Mountain. So Drew, thank you so much for being on our show.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for recognizing the relatively deep cut that is the Singing Mountain track.
Yeah, I mean, we are VGM aficionados much like yourself, so we as soon as I saw that, I was like, wait a minute, why do I know that? And like when I first heard of your show, I was like, yo, we named his show after Chrono Trigger. That's dope.
It's respectable.
He's a cool dude already.
It has disappointed a lot of people that it's not a Chrono Trigger specific podcast or like a cut lost track podcast.
Right.
But it has a nice melodic ring to it.
Has anybody like thought that it was a podcast about like a singing mountain? Maybe like an educational like documentary.
No, the best thing I ever get is confusion with a bakery called the Singing Mountain Bakery that's somewhere in the Midwest that people do get confused with. So I have to tell people when they look me up on Facebook, click on the one that's not a bakery, or like, click on the one that's a bakery. So,
you should like really mess with people on like an April Fool's Day episode and be like just talk about baked goods. The entire.
I could do that. I could actually do that.
Yeah, there you go. We came in on 2 tracks combined. The first part of it was the clock intro from Chrono Trigger called A Presentiment, then followed it up with Chrono Trigger. That's just like the name of the song. Yeah. It's also sometimes called Chrono's Theme.
Yeah.
So, yeah, what'd you think of that those 2 tracks combined, Justin?
I've never heard these before, and I've heard them so many times. I feel like it's really the only way to start, or that's the only way that we would start a Chrono Trigger podcast.
For sure.
Or episode. Generally, when we do a focus on something, especially if it's like a series or a game, we kind of open with the opening.
Right.
And, I mean, a presentiment is I mean, very simple. I mean, it's just the clock stuff to get you to understand that this game is about time.
Yes.
And not to be confused with the upcoming Crash Bandicoot, It's About Time.
Yeah, as soon as I saw the name of that new Crash Bandicoot game, I was like, hold up. You're stealing your sequel name from the tagline for Chrono Trigger that they put in the advertisements. So I was shaking my head at that. I was like, no.
It's one of my favorite things about this game. I mean, aside from just the pun in the advertisements, there's plenty of puns in the game. And,
Sure.
I mean, for as much as everybody's going to groan at them, I mean, if you didn't actually laugh a little bit deep down, I don't know how to fix you.
Yes. So, Drew, what did you think about these two tracks combined, listening to them again all these years later?
Okay, so I do have a profound emotional response to it, but I gotta admit, I actually looked up presentiment. It is a word.
Oh.
It means an intuitive feeling about the future, especially one of foreboding. So that's actually the perfect word for what that track is called.
Yeah.
That was just not an SAT vocab word I ever had to learn.
Oh, me either. Thank you for bringing that up, because I mean, we all have computers and we could have just tried to look it up, but we hear it and it's like, that's not a word.
Well, I was telling Justin earlier, I was like, you know what? I did almost zero prep for this episode, and you know what? It feels so good.
Yeah.
I mean, I've played through Chrono Trigger so many times, getting all those like endings for the game that I have the game and the events of the game pretty much memorized. So, and there's very few games that I can say that about.
Same, actually. I might have replayed this game more than any other game I replayed in my life. Because as I guess the Super Nintendo stopped being the console of choice. This was the one I would like rotate in the summer when I was bored and wanted to see all that again.
Yeah.
But hearing the opening clock ticking is such a emotional spot that hits me like really, really deep, and it makes me remember firing up this game for the first time and seeing what was like probably the most cinematic intro to a video game in the 16-bit era that I saw.
Yeah.
And it's just beautiful, and it felt like it was something bigger than just a video game.
I feel that sigh.
Yeah,
I
right.
do, because like sometimes you just don't have the words to put into detail what you're trying to say about something that you're so passionate about. So it's like, just prepare for an onslaught over the next hour and a half, 2 hours of nostalgia for this game, because we're going to bring it hot and heavy and lots of really, really good music.
Oh, yeah.
So if you came here looking for bad music, you need to just go home and be a family man. I don't know.
Nope. This isn't that podcast.
Yes, no. Tell us a little bit about your show, Singing Mountain, and what it is that you do on your show. I mean, we've listened to your show. We know a little bit about it, but clue some of our listeners who maybe haven't heard of Singing Mountain.
So Singing Mountain is currently on hiatus because I was just busy with a lot of other projects. But it started out as the first podcast I ever had. I kind of hated my co-host, and I wanted to do something that was me, and I wanted to talk about video games, but video games do not translate very well to the medium of audio unless you're talking about music. And it became a little fun side project where I would craft a little playlist and take people on a little journey and experience my nostalgia and maybe take them into stuff that they hadn't really encountered in the wild. And I'm not going to speak about it in the past tense because it's going to come back in the not too distant future. But
nice.
I tried to make it as personal as I can make it without being like gross or like maudlin about it. But, having been like a not so popular teenager who played a lot of video games, I have a lot of emotional investment in these games, especially Japanese RPGs.
Yeah.
And I just want to try to maybe talk to people about why the music that was written for these games is interesting, and it's manipulating us in interesting ways, and it's making us have emotions, and what they're doing within the confines of like the technical limitations they had back then especially is kind of astounding, and I just can never shut up about it. And it turns out I was very surprised that there was other people out in the world that wanted to also hear about that.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, you're putting out a show that is, I would say, like, not that our show is like an info dump. I wouldn't say anything like that. But I would say that I feel like we have a specific formula that we follow where we try to give mixed like education with entertainment. And I would say we do get personal at times, but like listening to your show, you kind of dive into a little bit about yourself and your own personal journey with not only the game music, but also just like who you are as a person too, without, as you said, getting like super personal. More like, you know, hey, this is how I'm feeling right now. Like I listened to your most recent episode, just to like kind of the quarantine episode. But like listening to that episode was like, this is exactly what I needed right now. Like as sad as some of the music was, it was a great way to kind of sit down and like reflect on the past few months. So if you haven't listened to the latest episode of Singing Mountain, go listen to it after this episode, because first off, it kicks off with a Chrono Trigger track. So
nice.
Yeah. But aside from that, there's some really good tunes in there, and it's a nice little personal voyage in hearing Drew. So I figure we'll get into our first track, and we're going to dive, of course, deep into talking about Chrono Trigger, the lore behind the game, the characters, our personal experiences with the whole experience, the soundtrack and everything. And so we're, of course, going to go round robin this time around. And our first track is from our guest, Drew. So what did you pick?
I picked the track that's titled Secret of the Forest. It's what you hear basically the first time you get out of the Guardia region. And it is an interesting track because that forest is relatively small compared to what the rest of the game is. You don't really ever spend that much time there. And you might actually get through the entire forest without hearing the extent of this track, which is a tragedy because it is like a deep and complex and layered, beautiful forest track that I think does a great job of capturing the idea of a forest that is both beautiful and dangerous.
Awesome. So let's listen to Secret of the Forest. And this one is by the composers for this game, Yasunori Matsuda and Nobuo Uematsu. I believe this one is by specifically Yasunori Matsuda.
So that was Secret of the Forest, composed by Yasunori Matsuda, and initially heard in the 1995 release of Chrono Trigger.
Such a good song.
Very, very calming. It's funny that you were saying, as you were introducing it, that you can miss most of the song because a lot of people, you may not spend a whole lot of time there. And I mean, that's very true. This is like a 4.5-minute loop or something like that, which is pretty long for especially a looped thing. But this track is probably one of the ones that I remember the most because it's so calming in certain ways. Like I used to just kind of get there and just let the music go.
My experience with this track was those vocal samples. I think this is the first time I ever heard vocal. It sounds like vocal samples.
Like
That might be a percussive instrument.
I always wondered about that. Like, it could just be like some sort of like sample that they used, or like some kind of like keyboard with a note bend or something. Like, I'm not sure what that is, but to me, it always sounded like a person like eating like a really yummy sandwich, or like maybe a stack of pancakes, and they like, you know, are taking a bite and they're just like, and then like that cymbal comes in like, do do do.
I always read that as them trying to imitate like a bird that you can't see.
Yes.
That was my take on it.
I can totally get that, especially since you're in the forest, and that totally makes sense.
Yeah, like that.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, this song definitely reminds me of getting to that forest area and, you know, kind of trying to find my way through the game, because at this point, you've got Luca with you, right? And you're in the forest.
You got Marl with you.
Marl, yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to probably talk about this quite a bit throughout the episode, but pronunciation on certain characters are probably going to be wildly different for most of us. I always called her Marley.
Oh, right. Because the Muppet Christmas Carol, Marley and Marley.
No. What? No. And I wouldn't have known that anyways.
I know.
Yeah, because I'm Jewish. So
that's the joke.
Yeah. That's the joke. So yeah, I don't know. That's what it always kind of reminded me of.
That's fair. I never really knew, and so I think I always said Marl in my head, but I would often wonder, like, is it Marl or Marley? And not having enough friends that were into this at the time.
Yeah.
I made most of my JRPG friends in high school, not before, and I just had nobody to talk to about it.
Sure.
It was Marl, but I often wondered.
Yeah.
So here's why I think it actually is supposed to be Marl, although you can call her whatever you want.
Yeah, sure.
That's not her real name anyway.
Right. That's true.
Trigger, they have a
Spoilers.
But I think it was Die Hard Game Fan was the first place I ever read about Chrono Trigger.
Okay.
Came out, and in the initial copy that they ran about it, they called her either Mal, M-A-L, or Marl, M-A-R-L, and it was not transliterated, if that's the word. It wasn't transliterated as something that had a vowel at the end. And I feel like if the translators wanted us to call her Marley, they would have given her an I or a Y at the end of her name.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, Marl's not a name. That's not
True.
Yeah, I know. Like, but the fact that it didn't end with a Y at the end, but it looked like the word Marley, I always was like, oh, it's just Marley. They just forgot the E is like a long, what would it be? A long E, right?
like Chloe or something.
Yeah, like Chloe. Yeah, exactly. So
I called the Nintendo helpline back in the day because I got stuck in this game, and I remember that they referred to this character as Marley on the pre-recorded like walkthrough.
oh wow.
As a very nerdy teenager who thought he was smart, I was like, I don't think that's right.
Nice.
It'd be amazing if you told them. If you were like, just to let you know, like you got like the comic book nerd voice out and excuse me.
Worst recording ever.
Yeah.
Nice. That's interesting. That I never knew. I don't think I ever called the Nintendo helpline. I was never allowed to because
I couldn't
my
either.
parents are paranoid.
Yeah.
Oh, I wasn't allowed to. I just called them. I was desperate to get around something that my brain couldn't figure out. And there was a point when I think my mom was like, "Who's calling Redmond, Washington?" I was like, "Oh."
That's amazing.
It must be the cat, Mom.
Yeah. My first introduction to Chrono Trigger was in Nintendo Power. It was shortly before the game came out, and that was back in the day when they had an RPG corner where they would like go over all the upcoming RPGs because RPGs were just becoming a thing.
Yeah.
You know, at that time, at least in North America, with like Final Fantasy II and Final Fantasy Mystic Quest and Final Fantasy III, Dragon Quest, etc. And you know, they really pumped up Chrono Trigger as this like huge adventure, you know, basically like it's the biggest game ever. And they hooked me 100%, hook, line, and sinker. I bought the guide when it came out, the Nintendo Power guide. I got the game. Like I was completely enamored with the characters and the story, and everything about it was just awesome. And it all started with that Nintendo Power issue. What about you, Justin?
God, I don't remember.
No.
So much of my childhood is mired in mystery. No.
Was it 95? Like, did you play it when it came out?
I definitely didn't get it like when it came out.
Okay.
I got it a little after. I'm trying to remember. I went into high school in September of 1996.
Yes.
So
Same here.
So it was. I guess it was within the first year. I didn't realize. I thought I got it a lot later than that, but
Yeah.
I got it before I went to high school. I definitely didn't beat it before I went to high school.
Right.
This game was. There's so much to do, and I never really considered myself a completionist.
Okay.
But with games like this, I don't think this was the first video game to have multiple endings and whatnot, but it was definitely the first game I recall playing that had multiple endings.
Same here.
Or that was so in depth. Like, it's not just that it had multiple endings, that you could like do slightly different things
Yeah.
in certain different, like there was massively different like ways you could go, and it
Yeah.
was just like I think this game is what gave me anxiety for for games that where like you can make choices that affect things, like the Telltale games.
Yeah.
It's just like there are certain things you can do in this game that will affect things way later. And I
Yeah.
mean, King's Quest did it, but King's Quest did it in really awful ways, because like if you forgot to tie a shoe in chapter 1, then you can't live through chapter 7. So
Oh,
like,
wow.
I mean, it's notorious for stuff like that. Like you
Yeah.
screw one thing up, and then like you either die instantly or it screws you over later in the game.
Wow.
But yeah, it was just I was enamored with the idea of multiple endings, but like I wanted to see them, but I didn't want to do the wrong thing, quote
Right.
unquote. And it's not a concept that I think was really in the game. Like there is no wrong thing. It's just
True.
you play the game how you play it, and you get the endings you get.
Right, exactly. So, Justin, let's get into your first pick. What did you pick for that?
All right, so track number 1 from Justin is going to be Burn Bobanga, and this one was composed by Nobuo Uematsu. Welcome back. I hope you did not catch fire. That was Burn Bobanga, composed by Nobuo Uematsu, from our focused study of the day, Chrono Trigger. It came out in many consoles. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but the SNES in 1995, the PS1 in 1999, and the Nintendo DS in 2008.
Yeah, or I hope you didn't drink yourself under the table / dance yourself to death.
There you go.
Because that's exactly what I think of when I hear this song. This takes place when you go back in time to like the dinosaur age,
Yep.
the Stone Age. You come across this character named Ayla, who is basically wearing like a fur bikini, and she's like a blonde-haired, like tough chick.
Yeah.
Tough girl. She was very flirtatious, and for 13-year-old Mike, I was just kind of like, who is this girl? Like, I like Marley. She's cool, but who is this girl? Like, I was very intrigued, and like I thought she was really powerful.
Yeah.
And really strong.
I think I had the same reaction. Between Marl and Luca, I think I liked Luca more.
Okay.
Just because there's the whole like technology and tinkerer, and like that's what I did when I was a kid. Like I took so many things apart and then put them back together.
Yeah.
And then we met Ayla, and I was just like, wow.
Yeah. I also, and maybe this is just me thinking this based on how she acts, but I definitely got a bisexual vibe from her.
Oh,
like,
sure.
Yeah, like that wasn't just me, right? Like, but that's the vibe that I got from her, that she was kind of like very flirtatious with Chrono at first. Like she pins him against the wall, and then she pins Marl against the wall and getting in her face. But like, what's that?
Even though they are related, we find out.
Right.
Yeah, I was gonna say spoilers.
Yeah. Whoops.
Nah.
But yeah, like I remember reading the dialogue and being like, wow, like she's like into everybody, and like I didn't know what being bisexual was, so I was just kind of like, she likes girls and boys. That's cool. Whatever. But like, yeah, that's like one of the first like moments I ever realized that there was a character like that. So it was pretty cool. Like representation like early on in video games. Yeah. But she was a cool character, and she was like always in my party because she was strong.
Yeah.
One of the cool things about Chrono Trigger is that you can do these like combo specials. They're tech specials, but they're combo moves. She had the most powerful ones, like the Volt Bite, where she would like get struck by lightning by Chrono, and then she would like go and bite the enemies.
Yeah.
And like that was a really strong move. And then the other one that I had Marley in my party as well as Chrono. That was like my big, like, if I'm going to go after Lavos, those are the three I'm going to go with. And I would do the Ice 3 or whatever it is, like the most powerful ice combined with whatever move. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it would have this massive icicle come down and then like Ayla would start like whomping on these enemies. Like it was just super cool to witness these. And they even had try moves where you had 3 characters all attacking. It was just a very visually stunning attack form.
Yeah. It was really impressive.
Yeah, there was a lot of really cool combos that you could do.
So, are you guys familiar with the website Legends of Localization?
No.
You should be. It's a guy who goes and looks at mostly JRPGs, sometimes non-JRPGs, and he compares what the localized translation of text in video games is versus what the literal translation of the original Japanese would be, and like tries to like guess why they translated it in one way or the other.
Oh, cool.
And he actually has a page about Isla's. I call her Isla.
Okay.
I call her Ayla, but we're just gonna disagree on that.
Yeah.
It's about her sexual orientation.
Oh.
So in the English version, she says, me Isla likes strong people, so Isla like Chrono. And then she says to either Luca or Marley, I'm not sure. Oh, no, I'm saying Marley. You strong too, Isla respects strong people, men and women. In the original Japanese, she says, you strong too, Isla likes strong people, whether man or woman. And Luca's response in the Japanese is, I'm not into that sort of thing. Luca's response in English is, where have they been keeping her? Which does not make any sense.
Right. Huh.
Yeah. So in the Japanese, Luca is put off by the fact that she's like, oh, I don't like girls.
Yeah.
Stop.
Yeah.
Huh. Interesting.
That is really neat.
Yeah. I'll have to check that website out because that sort of stuff really fascinates me.
Yeah.
It's like right up there with like the Michael Jackson Sonic 3 like conspiracy sort of stuff, which I mean, it's been confirmed.
I was like,
anyways.
it's not a conspiracy, it's real.
It used to be a conspiracy and it was super interesting. Now that the mystery has kind of died down, it's like, oh, now I need a new mystery.
I actually have something on this, actually.
Okay.
I really liked video games and kind of lived in my own little world when I was in middle school. And then high school, it was just like, oh, I'm a nerd. I don't really know who to be friends with. And it was not the easiest period in my life. But I ran cross country. And I remember once riding the bus to an away meet and sitting next to a girl I kind of knew. And she was listening to her headphones. And eventually she took them off. I'm like, oh, what are you listening to? And she's like, oh, it's the music I listen to pump up before a race. I'm like, oh, what is it? and it was the caveman dance track from Chrono Trigger that she recorded on like a tape cassette recorder straight from the TV and just like let it run for like 3 hours or however long a tape, I think 90 minutes, I guess.
Wow.
Yeah. It was just that, and she liked it so much that was her pump up music before she would run a race. And that was the first moment I was like, oh, I think we should be friends.
Yeah.
That's
That's like best friends material right there.
Yeah, I was like, did we just become best friends?
Right.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's
wow.
awesome.
I did not have that kind of an experience.
No.
Ever. I mean, I made my friends in high school because of just other weird stuff. I had a weird encyclopedic knowledge of Monty Python's Quest for the Holy Grail. And then I ran into a friend who had the entire script for the movie. And I was like, I guess we're friends now.
Yeah.
And then I branched off to other things from there.
No, I just made people like me by quoting Mystery Science Theater, the movie, all the time. And people were like, wow, this guy's really funny.
That didn't come out.
I just made that up off the top of my head.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Yeah, right?
Anyways, coming up next on our Chrono Trigger extravaganza, we're going to listen to the Battle 1 theme, which is probably the song that you hear the most in this game. Again, this is by Yasunori Matsuda and Nobuo Uematsu. Hey, welcome back. That was Battle 1 from the Chrono Trigger soundtrack. Came out on the Super NES, the PlayStation 1, and the Nintendo DS in 95, 99, and 2008, respectively. That track specifically was by both Yasunori Matsuda and Nobuo Uematsu. I love that bass groove. That's just one of the most memorable bass lines in history for video games.
Yeah.
It's so good. What were your thoughts on this, Drew, listening to this for the first time?
Like you said earlier, this is probably the track from Chrono Trigger I'd heard the most. And I am someone, I don't generally like RPG battle music. Like, and all the music I have on my computer and all the music I featured on Singing Mountain, there's very few instances of battle music. I don't know why. I'm not biased against it, but I had never listened to this track on proper headphones before. And while you're listening to it, there's that twinkling noise
Yes.
that pans from left to right. And
Yeah.
I did not know that was a feature of that song until right now.
Oh, wow.
It's kind of weird. Like, I've heard this song so much, and I didn't know that was something that was composed into it. And I just learned something new about the Chrono Trigger soundtrack, and that's kind of crazy.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. Like, growing up, most of us probably played this on a CRT TV that was mono output. I don't know many people that had, TVs that had, like, distinct left and right channels.
I played this on a 19-inch mono TV.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. You said mono, and I thought black and white, and I was like, what? How?
Yes, I didn't know what
scary.
color was until I was in high school. No, the TV that I had in my bedroom was a mono sound, but it was a 19-inch because, who had a TV in their bedroom back then? Oh, you did?
It was
really?
it was like a 13-inch, though. It was very small.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it was small.
I also had a very small TV in my bedroom that I use exclusively for video games.
Yeah,
Yep.
same here. Yeah, that's pretty much that. And I did watch TV on it too, but specifically, I had all my game systems and stuff set up. So.
Yeah, know that I've listened to this with headphones, like I knew about the panning, but there's so much of this stuff, particularly I think on the SNES, not that every game had it, but I think stereo is a little bit more common. So there's a lot of stuff that we didn't hear as kids that you put headphones on or you listen to it in the car or something, and you're just like, whoa, there are distinct audio channels in this game, and that's impressive, and I'm upset that I never got to experience it like properly.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah, this song you just hear constantly, and like it starts off as the sort of thing where you're like, this song is awesome, I can listen to this song forever, and then by your 400th fight you're like, oh my god, please, can I hear like the other battle theme? Like, oh, this is so aggravating. Because Chrono Trigger, the thing about Chrono Trigger is there's no random battles, or there's less random battles. It's more like you see enemies on the screen and there's ways to dodge enemies so you don't have to fight them all the time.
Right. There are definitely battle songs that from games that I just don't really care about, and I feel like that's the critical thing for me. In a JRPG, if your battle music, the music that you're going to hear probably the most throughout the game, isn't good and doesn't make me want to continue listening to it, I'm not going to be able to finish your game, because I can't get halfway through the game or like 3/4 of the way through the game and just be like, I hate this music. You can mute the TV or whatever, but like I don't know. I've always really had an appreciation for battle music. Like Final Fantasy 1, I love the battle theme. Final Fantasy 7, love the battle theme. In fact, now that I'm thinking of it, I think a lot of the games, or like the Final Fantasies or JRPGs that I either didn't finish or like wasn't a big fan of, I think that was a big piece of it. And it never really occurred to me until just now.
There you go.
I say this as a non-composer who like took some piano when I was a kid, and that's about all I know about music on a constructional level. But I can't imagine how difficult a task it would be for a composer to write a song that's like, the player's going to hear this 500 times, and you have to do your best possible job to make sure they don't get sick of it. It's really hard.
That's tough. That's true. Good
job, guys, on this one.
For sure. So let's talk a little bit about the composers of this wonderful soundtrack, starting off with the main composer, Yasunori Matsuda. He started off doing sound effects in 1992 on Final Fantasy V, which is a great game to start composing on. Continued to do sound effects on Secret of Mana in 93, and did a couple other soundtracks before Chrono Trigger in 95. After that, he's done a bunch. Like, I'm not going to go into his full lineup. I know that we're doing a bit of a spotlight on him and Nobuo, but we've talked about both of these composers before at length, especially Nobuo. So I'll pinpoint Radical Dreamers, which is a game that came out in 1996, which is a text-based sequel. It's a text-based adventure to Chrono Trigger that came out on the Satellaview system. So it's kind of a spin-off, and it's a precursor to the Chrono Cross series, or Chrono Cross game. Yeah. He also did the composition for Xenogears. He did the first two Mario Party soundtracks, and did Chrono Cross, Shadow Hearts, Xenoblade Chronicles, which has a phenomenal soundtrack. And his latest game is Final Fantasy 15 Episode Ignis, which is, I believe, downloadable content, or
it's an expansion
for Final Fantasy 15. He's labeled as a guest composer there. So he's done a ton of video game music, and he's a fantastic game composer.
Absolutely. As is Nobuo Uematsu, and as Mike said, we've talked about these guys a lot before, but I'm going to try to pull out just a few semi-obscure, or at least not Final Fantasy and like mainstream games. I know we've said before, like he started, or at least his first credit is 1986, Suisho no Dragon. I thought this said Sushi no Dragon.
What's that cult game that he did the soundtrack for, like back in the day, like mid to late 90s? I think it's called Final Fantasy 7.
I've never heard of it.
Never heard of it? Okay.
Someday somebody's gonna get sick of us saying that.
Yeah, pretty much.
But we also have, in 1986, Nobuo composed on Cruise Chaser Blasty, which I've never heard of.
Blasty?
Blasty. B-L-A-S-S-T-Y.
Okay.
The Rad Racer games, Rad Racer in 1987 and Rad Racer 2 in 1990, did music on both of those. And then it's like a wall of Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
Ooh, Front Mission. The Front Mission games are pretty neat. Front Mission Gun Hazard in 1996.
His newest game is this year, Grand Blue Fantasy Versus. And right before that, he was labeled as composer and producer on Final Fantasy 12, which was,
the Zodiac Age.
That's Zodiac Age. That's the re-release of Final Fantasy 12, right, in 2017.
Yep. Yeah, so it looks like he was out for 3 years, but I mean, he's got multiple things almost every year from 1986 onward, and it's just all so good. I don't think I've heard a Nobuo composition that I was just like, ugh, whatever. These two guys are, I won't say that everybody knows them, but if you are into video game music and you're not familiar with them, I suggest diving into literally anything by them, and you will find something you like. Nobuo has a really good range, as does Yasunori. Like the fact that they were both on this together is like dream team.
Yeah. So the reason why they're on it together is because Yasunori Matsuda got ill.
Very ill.
Very, very ill. And he had stomach ulcers from the stress of making the soundtrack. So he ended up in the hospital, and Nobuo Uematsu took over and continued working on his tracks. So that's why a lot of these tracks have input from him, more so than I thought, because I thought that Nobuo only did maybe 2 tracks, but apparently I'm wrong about that. He did more than
they collaborated on a few.
I know he did the sewer track.
Yep.
Because when you listen to that, you're like, this sounds different than the rest of the soundtrack, and it does.
It's funny, I was actually listening to that track on the way over here.
Okay, yeah.
I wanted to point out, you might have talked about it a million times on your show before, but I was very surprised when I learned that Nobuo Uematsu was not a trained musician. He's a self-taught musician.
Yes.
And that's such a mind-blowing thing because he does have such a range, and he can imitate so many styles. And the idea that someone could just figure that out on their own kind of breaks my brain.
Yeah. No, I'm with you on that.
Agreed. As someone who went through music theory and a whole bunch of that stuff in high school and college, wrapping my brain around that in a classroom setting, which is usually the best way for me to learn, wasn't easy. And for all the stuff this guy's done, to know that he kind of came from just, I figured it out myself.
Yeah.
I'm just like, that's prodigy material.
So it looks like we are getting a call on our Patreon hotline.
Ooh, patrons.
Yes.
I wonder who it is.
Well,
Janine,
go ahead and forward that call over to us. Caller, you are on the air. What do you want to hear?
Hey, Mike and Justin. Chris Murray here. Could you do me a solid and play Festival of the Stars from Chrono Trigger, my absolute favorite game of all time? I think this track does a wonderful job capturing the genuine happiness of the game and serves as a great backdrop to the end scene where peace is restored throughout time. I was originally going to request Singing Mountain, but I can't seem to find it. If you happen to see it, let it know we love it and can't wait until it's fully back in rotation. Thanks. Talk to you guys soon.
See, you're missed. You're loved.
That makes me feel happy. I really miss doing the show, and I'm very thankful that you guys gave me the opportunity to talk about video games to someone other than my roommate.
Of course.
Our pleasure. So let's listen to Chris's pick. First Festival of Stars, again from the Chrono Trigger soundtrack by Yasunori Matsuda and Nobuo Uematsu. This track is specifically Yasunori Matsuda.
Hey, that was our patron pick from Chris Murray, the first Festival of Stars off of the Chrono Trigger game on the SNES that was composed by Yasunori Matsuda, specifically on that track.
I just want to say that Chris, who I had a conversation with about picking tracks for this episode, very disappointed that Drew did not pick Singing Mountain.
Okay, so this was going to come up at some point, and I did want to talk.
Good timing.
I like the title, Singing Mountain, but as a piece of music, I actually don't have a strong emotional reaction to it.
Okay.
Possibly because I didn't encounter it in my first playthrough of Chrono Trigger because it was not in that version of the game, and it's been in later versions of the game, but I picked the name because it had a nice sound to it. It had music in, central to like the words that were in there, and also it was like something that you might not know. Like it was like a something you had to dig to know about, and I don't actually like the track that much.
Oh, that's fair.
Totally cool.
Shibboleth. Do you guys know that word?
No.
It's like this thing where if you know this word, you are good people. Like I instantly know, like, oh, you're okay.
Okay.
I'm like, okay, yeah.
Nice. So what did you think about this pick from Chris, Drew?
It is kind of an outlier in Chrono Trigger because it is happy without any of the haunting. I think every other track in Chrono Trigger is haunting and a little sad on some level, and this one isn't that because you've fixed all the problems. You're basically good to go.
Yeah, this plays towards the end.
Yeah.
To the point that it actually reminds me of in Super Mario RPG, the Hello Happy Kingdom track that is the Mushroom Kingdom track
Yes.
in that game. Or maybe even the closing parade theme from that game. It is happier than Chrono Trigger is in my brain.
Yeah, that
That's
makes
fair.
sense, yeah.
I think I might argue that Robo's theme is also happy without any foreboding, unless you count the Rick Astley piece.
That is very creepy, but yeah, you're right.
Mitsuda has said on the record that he did not know of the
No, I
existence
know.
of Rick Astley's Never Gonna Give You Up, which is a song that mixes incredibly well with Robo's theme.
Yeah.
Robo's theme.
Robo's theme.
Robo's theme was the song that I would hear the most when I went to the end of time, because there's this part in the game where you get to this section called the end of time, which is basically this old man standing in the middle of a thing, and he's one of the...
It's like the garden where you can bounce between the different areas.
Right.
Yeah.
And he is one of the elders, like the wise elders in the game who kind of holds everything together time-wise. And so when you're talking to him, he basically tells you that if you guys want, you can chill here, but you can only travel with 2 other people, including Chrono. And then later on, after you lose Chrono and then get him back, you can switch everybody, not just Chrono. When you do that, when you're like choosing people, it plays their theme song for each person. So I loved the song so much, I would go there and play his theme and just rock out to his theme.
That's pretty cool.
There's like these weird little like memories and nostalgic things that I would do in this game that like reminded me of stuff like that. Like, was I the only one that did that sort of thing?
For me, Frog's theme was my favorite of the playable characters.
Yes.
And that one was just like stirring and emotional, and I could never get enough.
Yeah, that is one of the more memorable and very emotional tracks. This track, I agree with you that it's definitely, this Festival of Stars track is, first off, it's a throwback to the Guardia Millennial Fair track that you hear when you're at the Millennial Fair. Essentially, the plot of the game is you're playing as this character, Chrono, who wakes up. We're introduced to this, I guess, like somewhat like medieval, but also has like little elements of futuristic stuff, like time travel has been created by this character, Luca. So Chrono and Luca are like best BFFs. And so Chrono goes to this fair to check out Luca's time thingy and bumps into this character, Marley, or Marl, whatever you want to call her. She loses her pendant, and you're like, oh, let me help you find that. Or you could be like, whatever. That's the thing about Chrono Trigger is you can decide what you want to do in a lot of situations, and it affects your relationship with the characters in a small way. So you can try to, and that'll affect you in the trial. Do you remember the trial? Where like if you didn't do certain things when you meet Marley, that it would greatly affect the outcome.
The kingdom trial. Yeah. I definitely didn't get like the awful ending, or the awful like stuck in jail. But
Yeah.
I do remember getting to the thing and then like seeing like as they go through these different things, and just like, oh god, okay, that turned out okay. And it's just every time they bring something up, I was just like concerned as to like, you know, did I do the right thing?
You didn't drink the root beer fast enough, did you?
Can't. Too many bubbles.
That's it. Throw them in the cellar. So this game came out on a few different systems. It started off on the 1995 release. The original release in Super NES came out in August. In fact, it came out on this day 25 years ago.
Get crazy, right?
Yeah,
August 15th.
we are releasing this on August 11th, I believe it is, right?
Yeah, did I say 15th? I meant 11th.
Yeah, August 11th is, I believe, the date that we are doing. And came out in March in Japan. So,
okay. So just a little bit before.
Yeah, and then it came out on the PS1 as part of a compilation.
Technically, it was labeled as a Final Fantasy. Was this?
It was.
Anthologies or Chronicles? 'Cause
Chronology, I believe it was called. Final Fantasy Chronology.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that had Final Fantasy 6?
I think it was 6 and
Chrono Trigger? Yeah, which is a good lot of games to have, but the thing is...
The menus.
Oh, man.
All you have to say, the menus.
That's it. That makes this game unplayable.
But I haven't played the Chrono Trigger on PS1.
Oh,
Is it
just
the same thing?
just sell the game or throw it out or burn it in a dumpster fire because it's unplayable. Every single time you open up any menu, it loads, which I don't know about you, but I am a menu fan. I was going to say something a lot worse that rhymes with door, but I am a menu door.
Okay.
That's it. Yeah.
Menu door.
I love going into the menus, changing the backgrounds, which was like a new thing that I'd never seen before. In games. I'm not normally an impatient person when it comes to loading, unless I have to pull up something all the time that requires loading.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I never realized how much I was in and out of menus actually until I was playing Final Fantasy VII Remake, and it's just like in the beginning of the game, it ramps up. The closer you get to the end of the game, the more you are just okay. Let me do this. Okay, do this thing. Okay, let me change these materials. Or
Right.
It never hit me until that, and I was just like, wow.
Exactly.
I think I spend most of my time in the
menus. So this version had some additional cutscenes that
and these
full motion videos that were done like little anime cutscenes, and they're really good. They're really, really good. The thing is that we got the best of both worlds with the Nintendo DS release in 2008 because it had not only the game that was loading just fine, plus some additional content never before released, like a multiplayer option and stuff like that for some like monster hunting type stuff. I can't remember the specifics, but it also had the cutscenes.
Yep.
The anime cutscenes, which was a great bonus add. So, did you remember playing the re-release in any way, shape, or form?
No, I haven't. And actually, it's one of those things that pops into my head every now and then that I don't think I've seen those cutscenes.
Oh, really?
Ridiculous, because they've been around for like years.
Yeah.
I think I read about them in a magazine, which dates that memory quite a bit. Isn't there one that takes place after the game ends and there's some sort of uprising in Guardia and it doesn't go well for Chrono and Marley?
Huh. Maybe.
Completely imagining that like it implies that something bad happens to the two of them. I could be making that up.
No, it sounds right, but I don't remember that. I remember the intro and I remember the characters being introduced. Like when you would meet like a new character specific, like when you meet Ayla, they would like introduce Ayla. When you meet Frog, they would introduce Frog, like that sort of thing, if I recall. But I don't remember that. I'm going to be honest, I don't think I ever beat it on PlayStation 1. I think I beat it on the DS, and I remember seeing the cutscenes, but it's been so long since I played it. I mean, it's been over 10 years, so.
Apparently, there are 13 and a half minutes worth of FMVs that are added in for the
Okay.
PS1 thing.
Okay.
I will watch those tonight and see what is there, but I also could be conflating my like kind of remembered ideas of this version of Chrono Trigger with Chrono Cross, where you find out that like all your heroes met terrible ends basically.
Oh, see, that I didn't know.
Wait, really? I never played Chrono Cross. I had a friend who played it, and when they were done, they were just like, so I never really bothered with it. But I thought I remembered hearing that Chrono Cross was like related but didn't directly reference. So it totally does.
Oh, maybe I've said too much.
No, it's all right.
I played it and I enjoyed it for what it was. It's not really it doesn't really feel like a successor. It feels like a side story to Chrono Trigger. I'm still waiting for the sequel to Chrono Trigger.
Yes.
But the characters do show up in various ways, and some of them don't. It's implied that things didn't turn out so well for them.
Oh, wow.
The game ends. Yeah, it's kind of a bummer, actually.
Speaking of bummers, let's move to our next track, which is a good song, but is
Not a bummer.
Which is it's not a bummer that this song that we're about to play is going to play. It's a bummer of what happens in the game. This is your next pick, Drew. What did you pick for us?
I picked the Trial theme, which is properly titled The Kingdom Trial, which is also composed by Yasunori Matsuda.
All right, let's hear it.
Saturday, this Saturday, this Saturday. Come on down to the Millennial Fair for a monster truck rally you'll wish you could see twice. Luca and her dad are bringing out the biggest and best steam-powered monster trucks you'll wish your eyeballs had eyeballs so you could see this twice over. From the four-wheeled, four-finned majesty of Sharkstar to the power and brute strength of double-engine, double-furred, grizzled T Werebear.
2 times the fur.
It's all here. see these two go head-to-head for a dueling monster truck battle. Hills, ramps, explosions! Oh, did you just plan to attend to do the root beer challenge?
Think again.
Racing a bunch of weirdos?
Sounds lame.
Gatos challenge? Don't make us laugh. Not even Luca and her dad's time travel is as cool as this. Show up Saturday at 5 p.m. Guardia time and get a picture with the all-star monster truck Bone Jaw. Only at the Millennial Fair, 5 p.m. Guardia time. Don't miss it.
So that was the Law and Order drama music from the trial scene in Chrono Trigger, titled The Kingdom Trial, composed by Yasunori Matsuda. And
Exactly.
I would have guessed if you just gave me all the tracks of this video game soundtrack separately and told me that Nobuo Uematsu had done one of them, I would actually guess that this was his.
Yeah.
Because it greatly reminds me of the music you hear in the whole opera scene, like all
3.
the various parts of Final Fantasy VI. And in some ways, the trial functions like the opera scene, where you're getting like a performance and a production, and it's not something you normally see in a video game, and you have to make choices, and your success depends on what kind of choices you made.
Yeah.
Makes sense at all?
Yeah.
That's a good point.
That makes a lot of sense. As you were saying that, I was like, this actually does kind of sound like a Nobuo track. I wouldn't have gone with the opera, but you make a really good comparison. So I think that actually makes a lot of sense. And especially because, like, if you ask me what I would compare it to, I'd go, I don't actually know. It generically sounds like something that I've heard from Nobuo Uematsu, but I could not name the track. But it's funny because I think in our last episode or 2 episodes ago, or at some point, there was a track we played, or that I had played, that I said it reminded me of something from like Sherlock, and this does too. Like, not to the same extent, but there's a very much a sort of like almost a Victorian feel to this, like what's sort of almost even a polka. Just it's got a very slow ba.
Yeah.
I also get a vibe of, like, not the music from The Godfather exactly, but like when a film score is trying to evoke that score and like tell you, like when The Simpsons has an episode with Fat Tony, they have a vaguely Godfather-esque score in there.
Yeah.
It kind of is what I'm getting from this, and it might be intentional because the whole point of the trial is that it's rigged.
Yeah.
And no matter what you do, Chrono goes to jail and gets sentenced to capital punishment.
Right.
And I think that might have been a conscious reference on Matsuda's part to like try to convey some sense of lawlessness or corruption.
Yeah, definitely corruption.
Yeah. I think song-wise, this is probably a song that I skip the most when it comes to driving, or I'll listen to the very like least amount just to like remember the track and then skip it if I'm driving around. But when it comes to this song, it is a very story-based track. So listening to it in that atmosphere, it's not something you can really do. So if you were listening to this driving around, you were probably like, and you probably wanted to skip it, because in that aspect, it's driving the story. It's not driving
Your car.
It's driving an emotion that's not something that you can relate to unless you've played the game. That sort of thing. Yeah. Because it's very specific to that.
It's probably my memories that I'm drawing on and how much I thought that was just an unusual part of the video game. And I agree with everything you just said, but I want to meet the person who just listens to nothing but this as they drive around town.
Like, did you know there's somebody?
Yeah.
It's like, I love this. This is my driving jam.
But yeah, no, the Kingdom Trial doesn't go your way for Chrono. And this is still pretty early on in the game. And this is unlike anything that I had played at that time. Because I didn't play Final Fantasy 3 or 6 or whatever you want to call it. This is the very first JRPG that I guess you can count Dragon Quest. Yes. I played the first Dragon Quest, or Dragon Warrior as it was known in the States. But if we're talking traditional JRPG, yeah, this is the first one I played and completely fell in love with. So, yeah, kind of weird.
I just realized something that might be kind of profound about the whole trial sequence and how the stuff you do at the Millennial Fair affects what happens at the trial. That is a nice microcosm for the concept of time travel, where things you do in the past affect things in the future in ways you can't predict.
Yeah.
And if you're writing a paper in college about Chrono Trigger, that would be something cool to write about, how they use this as an intro to like the concept of time travel.
Yes, yes. It's one of the great things about a lot of games from the SNES era and whatnot is just like they tend to introduce elements right in the beginning that you don't realize they're introducing these elements, but they are slowly teaching you what you need to know later on in the game. And if you're not paying attention, that can really screw you over. But games that do it well, it doesn't matter if you're paying attention or not. Like you'll absorb it. Like I talk about that with Mega Man X a bit, and I mean I say I talk about it, but I'm totally ripping off Egoraptor's sequelitis about Mega Man X and how it's great and how they teach you how to play the game. But like a lot of these games do that, and I mean this is one, and that's a great revelation because I didn't catch that either, and that's probably something that was very well put together, and I'm sure that it was totally their intent, but it was so well put together that it just kind of slides right by and you don't realize that you're getting this.
Yeah, that's exactly it. They had to teach you how to play the game through active participation and inspecting everything. Yeah. Just like in Doom, when you're playing Doom, and in order for you to find the secrets, you've got to tag every single wall. Or like Castlevania, you have to whip every single wall to try to find all the hidden stuff. And with Chrono Trigger, you've got to pay attention to every single thing that you do because it could greatly affect you based on your performance. If you don't run to Marley first to try to help her find the necklace, that could affect you greatly. If you don't try to be a nice person or try to, give her the patience to shop when she's shopping, I kind of almost felt like her boyfriend while playing that part.
I think you're supposed to.
Yeah, like I seriously felt like Chrono, not me was her boyfriend, but like Chrono was her boyfriend, because like they're walking around and she's like, hold on, I want to buy something. And she runs over. And if you try to wander away, she's like, oh, don't go anywhere or whatever, like that really rang true to me to like, it was like I was living through Chrono and, my little 12-year-old mind was like, is this my first girlfriend? So, yeah. That's how it goes.
A lot worse than Princess Nadia.
That's true. That's true. If your first girlfriend or, significant other is royalty, that's pretty good.
That's true.
You're doing well for yourself,
Unless it's a Nigerian prince that's trying to get you to transfer money from bank to bank so that he can give
That's
you
true.
$1 million.
But the consequences of him doing that are going to affect him in the future.
In the future, that's true.
So if we learned anything from Chrono Trigger, that's absolutely true.
That's very, very factual.
Yes. All right, let's move on to our next track.
Yes, so next up I'm going to play for y'all Last Battle, and this one was composed by Yasunori Matsuda. Welcome back from that insane twist of music and sounds. That was Last Battle, which is the final battle that you fight in Chrono Trigger, and that one was composed by Yasunori Matsuda.
Was I the only one who had nightmares about Lavos' voice/scream?
Probably not.
In like 15 years, and I forgot how unpleasant it is. It's really gross.
It's super grating and
Yeah.
super loud. So I apologize in advance, or not in advance. I retroactively apologize to anyone who had their ears blown out listening to that on headphones.
Yeah, Mike. Like, why would you choose that song? What the heck, man?
You chose that song.
And why are you apologizing?
True.
I apologize, but I will also be doing the editing, or some of the editing, so hopefully it won't blow your eardrums out.
Yes.
We'll take a look at the levels.
Yeah. That's probably the thing I remember the most about Lavos is that just
scream?
that hideous scream. And I would say the one when you're fighting him in this last battle is even more potent because you've got that one that's like stretched out, the normal one that you hear that you heard at the beginning. Mm-hmm. Like that's the one that you hear when you first get introduced to Lavos.
Yeah.
Lavos is the main antagonist of this game. At first you think it's a character named Magus, who is like this really badass wizard guy, this purple-haired...
Before he joins your party, anyway.
Well, before he... Well, yeah, you can actually play the game and not have him join your party.
That's true, too.
So it's one of those things you really got to search for to try to get him. But once you do get him, he casts some pretty cool spells.
That's true.
Yeah. But I think I would just get him just because he was so cool. And there's also some cool dialogue that transpires throughout the game if you do get Magus instead of not getting him. So it's pretty cool to get him.
Yeah. So, Drew, since we've been talking about names this time, do you agree with Mike? Is it Magus or Magus?
We have the word magi, so I think it's magus. Magus would be the singular of magi.
There's a third option that I did not think about.
There you go.
I've always said Magus. I mean, we all know who we're talking about, clearly.
Yeah.
That's fair.
That's interesting.
I'll accept any of the three.
3 different versions.
Magus, Magus, and Magus.
Magus. Yeah. We want to hear what you guys think. So leave us a comment or join our Discord or Facebook group and let us know what you call this character and any of the other characters. Ayla, Isla, Marley, Marl.
Luca, Lucca.
No, nobody calls... No. I refuse to believe that. Stop. Stop it, Justin. Go to your room.
No, I
No dessert.
I call her Luca. I don't know. I mean...
Yeah, no.
Dialect.
Her name's Luca.
Yeah.
Lucca. Well, some people call it Chrono, which I guess I understand because his name is Crono, but like the game is called Chrono Trigger.
Yeah, either way.
Anyways, so this takes place at the very end of the game, pretty much when you are in the last battle. I really like those swirling synths. I've noticed them before, but like they really stand out to me this time around. Probably because I'm so nervous fighting Lavos.
I guess it sounds like a final boss track, and it's a great track, but it sort of almost reminds me of like an F-Zero track. It sounds like a racing game.
Oh yeah,
ominous and like it's not a Mario Kart. It's like something kind of scary has happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. I usually end up swaying with this song because the stereo panning back and forth with the do 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 do, and it's again we were talking about the twinkling in stereo in the previous
theme.
track. Yeah. And I mean, we have another battle theme that has another like stereo panning thing that, as a kid, most people probably did not hear, but it's really cool.
We haven't talked about the fact that this is also the theme that if you're fighting him for the first time, they kind of pull the rug out from under you, where the entire game, you think Lavos is a big like crab, basically.
Yeah.
And then you fight him, go inside the shell, and then you think Lavos is a giant robot thing with like robot tentacles. Then you beat that thing, and then you find out that Lavos is this humanoid thing with these 2 orbs circling it. And then, even then, that's not actually Lavos. Lavos is the orb on the right, I think. That's the thing you actually have to kill that takes Lavos out completely. It's not even the humanoid. It's just like a continuous surprise of like, no, you don't actually know what's going on. We're going to continue to surprise you.
It's like those Russian
nesting dolls.
Yeah, nesting dolls.
Yeah, everything inside them was awful.
Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah.
I remember when you're fighting, you're in this like twinkly like time tunnel thing, and you see visions of all the different periods that you move through, like fading in and out, which is a nice like comprehensive touch to the game.
Yeah.
But most of all, I remember your character's reaction to finding out that's what Lavos actually is, because they're all surprised. I think Luca's reaction is it's a humanoid.
Right.
She's like was not expecting that. They all react in their own special way, but like they make it clear that like no, that's not what we thought was going to happen.
That's interesting. I really just don't remember. All right, so we're going to move into my next track, which is a song called Wings That Cross Time. This is a track by Yasunori Matsuda on the Super NES Chrono Trigger 95 soundtrack. And welcome back to XVGM Radio's Chrono Trigger celebration. 25 years. Can you believe it's been that long?
I cannot believe.
It's been a long time, man. That makes me feel old.
I mean, among other things.
Yes. Anyways, that was Wings That Cross Time on the Chrono Trigger soundtrack. That song is super uplifting.
Oh, yeah.
And
Very.
just makes me feel like I could do anything. And I love driving around to this song.
Yeah, this feels like a good driving song to me. Mm-hmm. Depending on the mood.
Is it the end credits theme?
No, that is To Faraway Times. This track is when you get the EPOCH, I believe, your traveling ship. Yeah, your space ship, or I don't know, time ship. I guess time ship is probably the best way to put it, because you can shift. Initially, you can only drive it around the area that you're in at that time, if I recall. But then you eventually unlock its full power when wings get added to it. And yeah, and then you can fly it pretty much anywhere you want.
Hence
and go
the
through.
wings that cross time.
Right.
This is what taught me the word epic, EPOCH, which I did not know was a word until I played this game.
I always called it EPOCH.
Yeah.
I
Epoch
think
sounds weird.
I think like the dictionary says it's supposed to rhyme with EPIC. They're pronounced the same way.
Interesting.
Really? Then that makes our title even better.
Yeah, we were really struggling with, do we want to name this an epoch musical journey? Get it? Epoch, epic, or 25 epic
years.
Epic years, yeah. I like an epic musical journey.
Me too.
Yeah.
I looked at it, they are pronounced the same.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, then there you go. Yeah, so listening to this song really brings back a lot of really good memories of, getting the epic and flying it around and going, like, you can change the time that you want to go in, depending on if you want to go back in time, do you want to go forward in time. So you get this, the ship like laser blasts across the screen, and then it slowly like approaches back, to the center point that you were at before, but now you're in a totally different time or era.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
It makes me think of some of the concept art that they had in the Nintendo guide. It may have actually closed in with the game in like little poster form, but there's this one of Chrono's driving the Epic, and you see Frog and Luca in the back, and they both have their hands pressed against the glass, and they're just like, wow. Really does a good job to like convey like what it would be like for these characters to go on this weird adventure together.
Yeah, that's true. And it is a really interesting set of characters. And when you mentioned Frog, it brought up something that I wanted to mention, that it's one of those things that I've always wondered about other people if they did the same thing. Kind of similar to the story that I was telling earlier. But do you recall, so in the game, there's a part where you find out that Frog used to be a character named Glenn, and that he was transformed into a frog by Magus.
Right.
And when I played the game the second time around, I changed his name to Glenn when I started off.
Yes, yep.
That's the kind of emotional journey that story took me on. Like, I can't even think about, like, I used to name all the characters my own name.
Yeah, yep.
And then, but with Chrono Trigger, it was the first time in a game where I got to name a character. So what I would do is I would play the game with Chrono as his name, Chrono, and then I would change the name to Mike later on, like the next time that I played the game.
Right.
Yeah. Did anybody else do that?
I always used to rename, like, if you could rename the characters, I would always rename them either to like the names of me and my friends, or our nicknames.
Okay.
Or when I was really big into Dragon Ball Z, I would name characters Vegeta, Goku,
Okay.
Stupid stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I do something similar, sort of in concept, where I used to play through a game the first time on my own without using anything, and like get to where I get, and then the second time I pull out I'll pull out the guide and be like, all right, like, so I got here. What are the other things that I could or should try to do?
Okay.
But what you just said about Frog and renaming him Glenn, that's what I do in Final Fantasy VII for Red 13. I rename him Nanaki.
Yeah, same here.
And then it gets really weird when you get to Cosmo Canyon and they're like, Nanaki is Nanaki, not like,
yeah.
The name. I'm like, this was a mistake.
Whoops. That's funny. What about you, Drew? Did you ever do anything like that?
Yeah, it's kind of embarrassing to think about, but like I named characters after people I was friends with, but like they did not know that they were playing roles in my weird little Japanese format. And I think some of them might be insulted by like who ended up getting, like, I do remember which friend. I may be Robo, and I think he would be like, I don't know why you made me the tubby robot character.
That's awesome.
Yeah, no, I don't think any of my friends knew that I named characters after them. Although I don't think anybody would be particularly offended or one way or the other.
Right.
But I never thought about that. I'm using your name for an unlikeness.
Yeah. I'm gonna start naming all my characters in Chrono Trigger after my podcast friends, my video game music podcast. All the people that we're tight with. Let's round out with the final 3 tracks. We have Drew's final pick coming up. What did you pick for your last song?
I picked the theme of a character who is either Shala or Shala, depending on how you choose to interpret that name. And she's not a playable character, although I really wish she had been.
Yeah.
And I get a lot out of this theme song. And maybe let people listen to it. And no, I won't prejudice them with my thoughts about it.
All right, let's listen to Scala's theme.
You're listening to XVGM Radio, where the bits just keep coming.
So that was Shala's or Shala's theme, composed by Yasunori Matsuda. It is my favorite character theme from all of Chrono Trigger, and it is my favorite because I think it tells us a lot about a character that we don't really spend much time with and otherwise don't know that well.
I agree. And there's just so much pain in this song.
Yeah, this feels like a very sad song.
Yeah.
Beautiful and tragic, and there's some element of like exoticism to it where I don't know what culture it's supposed to sound like, but it doesn't really sound like anything else in Chrono Trigger. I think the percussion in this song is meant to sound like a tabla, but it doesn't sound like Indian music at all. It just is kind of an otherworldly sound, which is appropriate because this character is mysterious and not like anyone else.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's very appropriate for the character. I do feel that there are themes in this track that are repeated or heard again in other tracks, but not really any of the other themes that I can think of.
So one of the songs on the soundtrack that we aren't playing is Corridors of Time.
Yep.
And that's because I believe we played it on Mike's Picks, on the Mike's Picks episode. And this song is one of my favorites on the Super NES, period, for Corridors of Time. But this song reminded me a lot of Corridors of Time because of the instrumentation that you hear. It's very worldly, as you said. It feels like something from another country that you wouldn't normally hear in a JRPG. But then on top of that, I feel like the sounds themselves for the lead melody are very atmospheric and emotional. And I feel like that is also echoed in Corridors of Time. So the entire part of this game that you're experiencing is a tragic part. The character, who apparently I say the name completely wrong, I call her Shala. I don't know why.
Well, I mean, as a kid and not really knowing SCH, seeing the S followed by the C, I mean, Shala, I don't know. But
I can totally see
yeah.
Shala.
Yeah.
Shala makes a lot of sense to me, but I always called her Shala.
Yeah, Shala also makes sense.
Yeah.
I think in my head I kind of bounce between the two, but I have a cousin named Shala, Shayla.
Right.
So knowing that SCH is supposed to be sh, and then just the rest of it, it feels like it should be Shala. And who knows? I'm not the type of person to do the research and look things up this is how it's actually pronounced. But when corrected, I will adjust.
I like how the entire episode has just been us trying to figure out how everyone said certain names of characters in this game.
Yeah. It's a very interesting idea, though, because there's so much dialogue that you're just reading in word form, but you're not reading it out loud. And if you are like most people, you're playing it on your own, and you might not ever talk about it to people. So you might not realize that people have other pronunciations for these characters until you finally get a chance to talk about it out loud. And you're like, oh, that's how you pronounce it?
Yeah.
That's
a good point. There's been such a huge push to release a sequel to this game. Oh my God. But the thing is, I think they could do it. But much like Final Fantasy VII Remake, it is going to be one of those major projects that you have to put into motion very early on. And, the creators are only getting older and older. This group of people included 3 designers that Square called the Dream Team.
Oh, yeah.
So it was Hironobu Sakaguchi, who is the creator of Final Fantasy, and pretty much saved the company from bankruptcy.
Yeah.
Yuji Horii, who was the designer and creator of Dragon Quest, and Akira Toriyama, who, Dragon Quest and Dragon Ball did the art for both of those series. So, you had the producer Kazuhiko Aoki, the story was written by Masato Kato, and then, of course, the composers, Yasunori Matsuda and Nobuo Uematsu. So, you've got these heavy hitters that nowadays are super famous and are doing work on all different kinds of things. I mean, Hironobu Sakaguchi isn't even with Square anymore. He left and formed Mistwalker Studios, and they released The Last Story and stuff like that, so Blue Dragon. But I believe that they're all, for the most part, friendly with each other. So where does it start? Where does I think the demand is there.
I'm biting my tongue because I have so many I don't want to spoil anything about this universe for you, but some things that you're talking about have already happened, and I don't.
So basically, play Chrono Cross.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a very interesting thing, but also I will point out that we got a remake a 3D remake of Seiken Densetsu 3, which I thought was never going to happen.
yeah.
As someone who was dying for this game to come out in America when it was announced for Super Famicom, and it didn't, and I was like a very broken-hearted nerd about this, to the point that I imported the Japanese copy. It was the first Japanese cartridge I ever brought to America so I could play it, and made it through that game as best I could without a proper translation. And I assumed that would be the end of it, and then we got something more, and I still can't believe that I'm actually playing through it right now.
That's a good point. Yeah.
I would say that the interest in this game is less than the interest in Chrono Trigger, because I think Chrono Trigger had a bigger foothold with the market than Secret of Mana did.
It did.
Perhaps I'm wrong. I don't know.
No, you're absolutely right. It shipped 2.65 million copies worldwide by March of 2003. So lots of copies of games for Chrono Trigger were sold. It was the third best-selling game of 1995 in Japan.
Damn.
Yeah.
So maybe one day they might revive. They had that copyright for Chrono Break that expired, I think, in the mid-2000s. But
yes,
one day maybe we'll get that and find out what is going to happen with this little universe.
Exactly. All right. Well, I hate to interrupt this wonderful conversation, but we are getting a call on our hotline for requests from random people.
Also known as the XVGM Radio hotline.
That's right. So let's go ahead and take that call. You want to forward that over to us, Janine?
Caller, you are on the air with XVGM Radio. Who is this and what can we play for you?
Oh my God, it's Lavos.
Oh,
God. Should we hang up on him? I can't believe Lavos called in again. Nope. You're done. Sorry, Lavos.
Okay. I will give him this. We'll
give everybody
play
gets
his
one.
theme, yeah.
If I learned anything from Family Guy and Spider-Man, everybody gets one. Right.
Yeah. Okay. We'll play your theme. I assume that's what he's calling about.
Probably that, or he's telling us that he's about to end the world.
Well, if that's the case, then it won't matter. So let's just go ahead and play this theme. So Lavos' theme from Chrono Trigger, 1995 on the SNES.
All right.
Welcome back. That was Lavos' theme, one of the most ominous and spookiest tracks on this entire thing, maybe borrowing the screaming from when I played the last battle.
Yeah, throw a couple Lavos screams in there and you get yourself...
We've had enough Lavos screaming for today. Can we...
Yeah, my bad. We'll move on.
But
what do you think of this one, Justin?
I really enjoy this one. There's not a lot to it. Like it doesn't have like 3 parts. It's not any symphony or anything, but it's very simple and very effective. It reminds me a lot of, from Final Fantasy VI, Dancing Mad.
Okay.
It's got that big orchestral thing. The difference being that in Dancing Mad, there's this build up and then it kind of slips into this other style and kind of goes all over the place. In this one, it builds and it just kind of sits there in this weird, uncomfortable, like I want to move on to something else, like add something else in, but no, like this is messed up. This is maybe the end of you. This may be the end of the world.
Yeah.
and you just have to sit there with it.
This is good movie score material.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, really, really kind of pays homage to the bad guy kind of music. What do you think of this one, Drew?
I agree that it reminds me a great deal of a Final Fantasy VI track, which sounds like a diss, but I don't mean it that way because Final Fantasy VI is amazing. Yeah. But for some reason, it just feels like it falls a little bit short of the various versions of Dancing Man we get in Final Fantasy VI.
Yes.
That said, like the bad ending you get from challenging Lavos and losing is, do you guys remember? It's that like screen that ends where it says the future refused to change, and then you hear Lavos scream one more time.
Yes.
That is something I have tied very closely to this theme, and it's kind of a horrifying thing to like be presented with. Not only did you die, but like the world was destroyed, and we're gonna make you watch this whole cutscene just to pound it into you that like you didn't do good.
Oh yeah, like I'm trying to remember, but isn't it a scene where like they show the world basically being destroyed?
Yes.
Yeah.
You see it erupting in the good version of the future where it's domes, but it's all green still.
Yeah.
And then they spew fire everywhere, and it does not go well.
Man, that brings me back to the first time in the future in this game when you see Lavos for the first time on the monitors, raining down the fiery rain, and he emerges, and like Marley just collapses, and she's just like, "Oh my god! Like we didn't do anything. Like we have to beat this guy." And just the utter sense, that whole part of the game, this utter sense of loss and chaos. The whole world is just completely run down in the future, to the point where like you come across those people and you give them the seed, and they don't know what the word hope means.
Oh yeah.
And they're just like, hope? What is hope? And you're just like, oh my god, I'm starting to like remember these parts of the game, and it's bringing back all these emotions and memories that I had playing it back then. Like this game really got to me back then, and still to this day.
Yeah.
I feel like it might play even a little differently today, given what we're having to deal with, where you have this like image of hopeful young people being like, we're going to save it. And then when Marley finds out that she did not save it, like what you did was not enough. You have to do more.
Yeah.
She's very crushed. And that's a very real contemporary feeling that like hits me in my gut.
Yeah. I think that rings true to everything that we're going through right now in 2020, you know, but the future refused to change. So.
Yep. Seriously.
Yeah. No, for real.
So it's going to happen at the at midnight on December 21st, or December 31st, 2020.
Lavos.
You're just going to see scrolling across the midnight sky.
Yeah.
The future refused to change.
Yeah.
And we're all going to be like, oh no.
Is that like the moon from Majora's Mask? Yeah.
Yeah.
You're just going to see an epic go by.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Then we'll know it's good.
Yeah. And then Lavos will kill us all. So, you know, it's good. Listen, at this point, you know, it might be better off than what's going on in the future.
Yeah.
Might be an exciting way to escape like further misery.
Yeah.
Personally, I welcome our new Lavos overlords.
Yep.
So we went
I
from...
think that was quick.
Yeah.
Quick.
A quick death is what we need. So we're going from a track that brings up all these emotions and stirs up all these bitter moments and hatred towards Lavos, and now we're moving into our closing track, which I've picked, which is a song called To Faraway Times. And get ready to break out the tissues, gang, because this track by Yasunori Matsuda is definitely deep. So
Yeah.
let's give it a listen. Put the tissues away. That was To Faraway Times, the closing track for Chrono Trigger on the Super NES, PS1, and Nintendo DS in 1995, 1999, and 2008, respectively. Soundtrack composed by Yasunori Matsuda and Nobuo Uematsu.
And what a closer it is.
Yeah.
Very appropriate song to close with, considering this is, if I remember, is this the end credits? Is this like the bit where like you finished and it kind of, you go to visit all the other eras that you were in and you get to see like, here's what's going on here, here's what's going on here. Okay. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, this is such a pretty and somber and sad song. Like, for this game, this is entirely what I would expect to be the ending theme. But in general, for most games, like usually your credit roll is really uplifting and everything else. And especially in a game like this, with there's multiple endings, but even with the good ending, like this is the closing track, and it's just really pretty.
Yeah.
I think this is my favorite version of Chrono's theme. It is the one that like twists the emotional knife just perfectly. But even though it's a little bittersweet, it's ultimately a triumphant song because you're hearing it when you get the good ending. And unless I'm mistaken, this is what you see when Chrono and Marl float away on the bushel of balloons. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so.
It's been forever since I've seen it, but
yeah.
It's the nice antidote to the track we played previously. And it's just kind of nice to think about how JRPGs maybe put it in your head that like no matter how bad the odds are, if you and your group of ragtag friends try hard enough, you can like fix it.
Yeah.
And they did. And that's a really nice feeling to have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This is the first song from a video game that made me cry. And I remember it was years after I played the game. Like, it made me definitely feel emotional for the characters and everything that happened in the game. But I was in college and I was driving and something else was on my mind that was really upsetting me. And it was kind of like a well up of emotions because then this song came on random and I just lost it in the car driving and had to stop the car, had to get it all out of me. It's such an emotional ride through the entire game that you experience with this song. But at the same time, like, you really grow to love and appreciate these characters. And that's, I think, what made JRPGs, why I focus so strongly on good characters and memorable characters, and why I won't play those, games that we were talking about earlier with like Chrono Cross, for example. I still kind of want to play Chrono Cross, especially after talking to Drew about it now, but
at the very least, go read up on the wiki. That might be enough for you.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. I'm like one of those people where like I can't read. Like, I feel like with Chrono Cross, I think I may end up just playing it and giving it a shot and probably really enjoy it because I mean it is Square Enix or Squaresoft rather.
Yeah.
But anyways, this track was super emotional for me, and even now listening to it, I remember that moment in my car, and it brings back a lot of those memories. So yeah. Anyways, it was a real fun experience diving into this soundtrack with you, Drew. So we appreciate it, and we want to give you your chance to shine. But before we do that, we want to get your opinion on your favorite track, because at the end of every episode, we talk about the tracks that we picked and which song was our favorite. So we want to hear from you for starters. We always let the guests go first. So what was your favorite track from this episode?
I will answer that, but I have something to say.
Sure.
Really, I had a incident like that where I was driving a car and like a song just hits you in the right way and you have to pull over because you're like, oh, I'm feeling everything right now.
Yeah.
And that's a weird thing to happen, especially if you're a guy and you're trained to not like exhibit your emotions.
Yeah.
We're conditioned not to do that.
Yeah.
But just like sit there and think about the fact that like someone created a song that was something that was composed and played, and that song disconnected from the game it's attached to, or in my it was a Talking Head song. That just hits you so hard that like you are filled with emotion, and that's like the most beautiful thing in the world.
Yeah.
And we should be happy that like art can move us so strongly.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's one of those things like really makes you feel alive in a certain way. Yeah.
My pick, I guess, is Shala's. I am a sucker for a sad girl. Like Isla, she's great. I like her. Luca, she's in control of things, and Marley's a princess, so she's fine. Shayla's a sad girl, and she kind of gets screwed over, and it's good to hear that song and remember what it's like to spend a brief amount of time with someone you wish you could have spent more time with.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Nice.
I also really enjoy I'm a sucker for sad girl. I feel like that should be a song title
I'm a sucker for a sad
or a lyric at the very least.
It might already be a Conor Oberst song. I wouldn't know off the top of my head, but it seems like something he would say in a song.
Okay. Cool.
Nice.
All right, Justin.
I'm going to have to go with the first track we played, not the intro, but Drew's first pick, Secret of the Forest. I just like hearing it again after having not played the game for a really long time and being able to just like, I remember the track, I remember the notes, and I remember enjoying it to the point where I would just kind of like let it play.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with To Faraway Times, just for the emotional aspect and the memories behind it. So, but, otherwise, I do really enjoy the battle theme. It's really good.
Battle 1?
Yeah, Battle 1. So I really enjoyed that one. Also dig Burn Babonga. That's also a really good track that always gets me in a good mood.
Yeah. With tribal drums.
Yeah. All right. So again, thank you so much to Drew Mackie for being on our show from Singing Mountain. Please take this time to tell us where we can find you on the web, where we can find your show, and anything else you'd like to promote.
Thank you guys for inviting me on this show. It's really nice to remind myself of how much I like talking about video games, especially video games from this era. My show has been on hiatus basically since November, I think. I went to Japan and I wanted to get ready for the trip, and I needed to take a break from Singing Mountain because it's a very personal show for me, because it's just me like putting stuff out there, and I identify very strongly with it. And I wanted to take a break and regroup and decide what I really wanted to do with it. And what I wanted to do is change the format to 16-bit music only. So I'm in the process of making playlists for future episodes that are just from 16-bit games from across all the consoles that fit that description, and present something that is maybe not something you've heard everywhere else. I just wanted to do some deep digs and present some cool stuff that people may not have heard before. So that is something that will come back in the future at some point. And when it does, it will be at singingmountainpod.com, or just look for Singing Mountain on any podcast.
Not the bakery.
Not the bakery. Support the bakery. I think I support the bakery at this point. So, my show, have a look at that. It's a little bit more than 100 episodes that I've done, and I got this weird surprise last year at the end of 2019 where this like kind of fancy group of influencers and like online intellectuals did a list of like 100 podcast episodes that are worth your attention that came out in 2019. And I don't know how they found me, because VGM is so niche. Like,
Yeah.
if it's not something you like, you're not going to seek it out. This woman wrote this paragraph about an episode I did about pipe organs in video games. And she said that she was not a video game person, and somehow she ended up listening to this one episode of Singing Mountain, and she thought it was the best thing she heard that year, and wrote a nice paragraph about me.
Wow.
And it was so gratifying because, like, you guys know, like, it's sort of weird to tell people that you have a video game music podcast.
Yeah.
Just kind of dismiss it out of hand. And this civilian was into it, and it made me feel like what we're doing is worth it. And we're doing some like academic analysis of this genre of music. That episode is number 71. The title of it is Midnight Mass at Our Lady of Pixels. And I was really proud of it, and I never thought it would find an audience, and it did, and it made me very happy. So please have a look through my back history. The reason I actually put Singing Mountain on hiatus, other than the fact that I wanted to regroup, is that I have another podcast that's doing much better. More people are listening to it. It is called Gayest Episode Ever. It is a podcast about gay episodes of classic sitcoms. And I am also really proud of this work. And if you have any interest in me and my roommate hyper analyzing every episode of a classic 80s sitcoms you could imagine, go to gayestepisodeever.com and have a listen to what we're doing. I would direct people towards the episode we did about dinosaurs. Dinosaurs did a gay episode that I feel like most people are not aware of.
Oh, wow.
It will blow your mind when you realize that Dinosaurs did a gay episode.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's coming to Disney Plus, apparently.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, Dinosaurs. This is not the mama show you're talking about. Yeah.
Not the mama.
Yeah.
They did a gay episode. It's
Yeah.
really good.
Interestingly enough, their overlord is also Lavos.
Probably, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, kind of, based on what happens at the end of that show.
Oh, that's true.
That's
Yeah.
Ooh, that last episode, man.
Yeah.
At Womp Womp. But follow me at Druji Mackie on Twitter or Singmopod, SANGMOPOD.
Awesome. And we'll, of course, put links to all this down in the show notes. So if you caught most of that, but you were like, wait, slow down, go to the show notes. You'll be able to see it on our website.
Yep.
I will send you the links because I don't want to make you have to do it.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
So, we'd like to take a moment to thank our Patreon patrons, without whom this show's continued improvement would be impossible. They are Alex Messenger, Scott McElhone, Cam Worma, Chris Hart, Dan Lawton, Chris Murray, Kung Fu Carlito of the Heroes 3 podcast, Jordan and Anson Davis, Chris Myers, Llama Adam, Jeremy Rutz, Peter Panda, Ryan McPherson, Bedroth of the Very Good Music VGM podcast, Jason Super Jess Doss, Nick Davis, Matthew Hanola, Brad Austin, Muddle Madness, Mixmaster, and the Autistic Gamer 89. If you would like to become a patron, you can sign up at patreon.com/XVGM Radio. There you can see the different tiers as well. Just $1 gets you a thank you and access to our monthly live shows.
You can visit our website, xvgmradio.com, where you can listen to all the episodes and learn more about your hosts, as well as any of our guests or composers that we've had on the show.
If you'd like to reach out to us, you can always email us at xvgmradio@gmail.com.
And if you'd like what you've heard, please consider giving us a rating on iTunes and a review.
You can also join our Facebook group and chat with other VGM lovers at www.facebook.com/groups/XVGM Radio, where we talk about everything from current game news to sharing awesome VGM tracks, or just talking about the podcast itself.
And you can find us on Twitter and Instagram. Our handle for both of those sites is @XVGM Radio.
If you don't have any other social media or just want to try something unique, check us out on our Discord group chat. Links will be in the show notes.
So, Justin, in a couple weeks, we are coming back since we had some back-to-back episodes where we released an episode and then shortly after we released another episode to fit the deadline for Chrono Trigger's 25th anniversary on August 11th. We are going to be back in the saddle in less than a month, but more than 2 weeks. What are we coming back with?
So, in early September, we are going to come back and listen to music that we enjoy driving or cruising to. It's going to be something along the lines of VGM in motion.
Yeah.
What do we want to, like, if we're driving to work, or if I've got a 2-hour drive to something, what VGM would I throw on, or what would you throw on?
Exactly. I like this, and we're going with it. So come back in a couple weeks. We'll have episode 59, Cruising for a Bruising. This is Mike
And Justin.
signing off for XVGM Radio. All right, so coming up next on our Chrono Trigger, yeah. Chrono Trigger. Lavos is the main protagonist. Whoops.
That'd be an interesting game.
That would be, yeah. We're doing God's work, really.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, we are.
or our overlord Lavos.
I mean, yes, I'll praise Lavos.
Yes, all hail Lavos.
Jeez. We're on a mission
That
from
episode-
God.